Hello and welcome to State of Play on Mint Press News. After a brief hiatus, we are back. I came down with a fever after I was arrested for disrupting the Senate Armed Services Committee. So I've been sick all weekend. It was cool being on Democracy Now! But anyways, spent the weekend bedridden, but it's Monday. Trump's inauguration was today, and it's going to be a wild 4 years. So strap in case you guys haven't been on social media all day. We got this fun one. This fun thing just happened.
Making it happen. Thank you.
Whoops. Was that just a really autistic mistake, or was it? Oh wait, he doubles down. Yeah, so it looks pretty similar. Look, it was probably just a mistake, right? The South African guy currently courting the far-right fascist AfD party in Germany, trying to say that the Nazis were actually communists. They weren't right-wing fascists and capitalists. But there's a lot of confusing ideology going around. Maybe it's just autism, intense spectrum stuff. Apparently, I'm also on the spectrum, but not that much. I don't know. I'm not a clinician, but we'll see. This is the most viral thing on the internet right now, and if he doesn't address it, it's kind of being okay, yeah, that was a Nazi salute. This apartheid South African baby, who's courting the AfD party in Germany, might have actually meant what he did. And the MAGA crowd didn't have a problem with it. Nick Fuentes said it was a Roman salute, not a Nazi salute, but a Roman salute looks like this. Fist here, straight out. I don't know. We're just going to move on. I'm sure there'll be plenty of commentary about that. So Donald Trump has... President Donald J. Trump, get used to it, has formally resumed his presidency, yeah? And the season of administration, infighting, backroom deal-making, and grifting has arrived yet again. I think Vivek Ramaswamy, he's already leaving DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, because he's outstayed his welcome. So we've got one nominee, one figure already leaving, and it's not even, well, technically now they're installed in the presidency. So there's no more fitting of a herald, in case you guys haven't been tracking this story, for the next 4 years than the release of President Trump's nascent cryptocurrency initiative, the meme coin $Trump. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and pull this up. Okay, so if you don't follow the bro world of cryptocurrency, what's it called? It's one second, guys. It's $Trump coin. And Yeah, so these meme coins are very odd. They're like kind of somewhat reminiscent of like NFTs, non-fungible tokens, because they don't have any inherent value. And we're going to get into this real quick, but this is an interesting thing to look at because it just really reminds us that the next 4 years are going to be about grifts. So again, there's no more fitting herald for the next 4 years than the release of President Trump's nascent cryptocurrency initiative, the meme coin $Trump. Strump. It kind of looks like Strump, STURUMP. It was coordinated with CIC Digital LLC, an affiliate of the Trump organization. So meme coins are a cryptocurrency that are basically based off memes. So it originates from an internet meme post, generally with like humoristic or inspirational characteristics. They're used to build popularity from these viral internet trends, but they lack intrinsic value and are dangerously volatile investments. So over the weekend, hours after its launch, the value of the coins for $Trump. Okay, so if we look at this, like this is what he posted on Truth Circle. This is the first meme coin that you can like buy. It says Trump, fight, fight, fight. He writes, "My new official Trump meme is here. It's time to celebrate everything we stand for. Winning. Join my very special Trump community. Get your Strump now. Go to gettrumpmemes.com. Have fun." Oh my God. This is what we're looking at for the next 4 years. So again, they lack intrinsic value like a car or like anything that's tangible, and are dangerously volatile investments. So over the weekend, hours after its launch, the value of the coins for $Trump reached nearly 5.5 billion, according to coinmarketcap.com. Though it's unclear how much money, in conjunction with Trump's personal assets and his new position as president, he'll actually make for it. But it's inherent how much he'll make from it, but it's inherently predatory, bearing all the hallmarks of a classic pump and dump scheme. And by the way, the market cap's now that it's the inauguration's here, it's actually over $10 million. And yeah, it's going to be such a pump and dump. So according to the site investor.gov, quote, in a pump and dump scheme, fraudsters typically spread false or misleading information to create a buying frenzy that will pump up the price of a stock and then dump shares of the stock by selling their own shares at the inflated price. Once the fraudsters dump their shares and stop hyping the stock he's literally using his position as president to hype the stock of $Trump coin. The stock price typically falls and investors lose money. So yeah, President Trump has promised many things. Okay, I just wanted to kind of bring up the meme coin launch because it's just so what the next 4 years are going to look like, just like Mar-a-Lago con BS. So he's promised many things, though. An unworkably expansive and expensive mass deportation campaign, a speedy end to the war in Ukraine, Saudi-Israeli normalization, an increase in domestic energy production. Like they really resurrected the saying "drill, baby, drill," which I thought was like from the early 2000s, right? Drill, baby, drill. So they're bringing that back. They want an increase, in domestic energy production. Wants to like halt energy protections for like clean vehicles. Wants to stop like building windmills off the coast. So more oil and gas. So he wants to cease DEI, diversity, inclusivity programs within the federal government, and to lower grocery prices by waging a war on gender. Furthermore, it will be the official position of the United States government that there are only two genders, and other important culture war issues that will really help the working class. And he also promises an end to the war. So he will attempt to achieve this by signing a flurry of executive orders. But before we get into that, in case you guys were working today and you didn't have time to watch Trump do his thing, I think here proudest. Wait, now I think we'll do this one.
We will be the envy of every nation.
Yeah, we're going to be the specialist, shiniest nation of all time and all these good things. And it's all going to be rainbows and unicorns. And there's no concrete policy that he even mentions. So here we go.
And we will not allow ourselves to be taken advantage of any longer. During every single day of the Trump administration, I will very simply put America first. But first, we must be honest about the challenges we face. While they are plentiful, they will be annihilated by this great momentum that the world is now witnessing in the United States of America. As we gather today, our government confronts a crisis of trust. For many years, a radical and corrupt establishment has extracted power and wealth from our citizens while the pillars of our society lay broken and seemingly.
He is literally standing right in front of 3 billionaires. Well, actually, there's like 10 billionaires in the audience. Miriam Adelson is one of them, and we're going to talk about Miriam Adelson here during this episode. But there's 3 billionaires behind him. You got 3 of the richest men in the country. You got the head of Google. You've got Zuckerberg, CEO of Meta. You've got Elon Musk of Tesla, and you got Jeff Bezos of Amazon. And they're sitting right behind him and in front of our elected officials. So oligarchy's been here for a long time, but now it's just bald-faced, like not even hiding it anymore. And of course, if you looked at Biden's outgoing address to the American people, he says the oligarchy is here, but he's framing it as a left versus right issue, that only the oligarchs are right-wing, which is insane since Zuckerberg gave a bunch of freaking money to his campaign and the Harris campaign. You can fact check me on that, but I think that's why Zuckerberg, one of the big reasons Zuckerberg had to go and kiss the ring for meta censorship, because he donated to the Biden campaign and the Harris campaign. So yeah, I don't know where I got this laser pointer, but it's fun. And so he had to kiss the ring. Now they're all towing the line. We're seeing the classic conflation of state interests and the interests of oligarchs that, we saw in Nazi Germany. We're seeing some Roman salutes, from the salutes of the Roman legion. So yeah, it's going to be a fun 4 years. Anyways, let's continue. He was talking about people extracting wealth from the American people. All right.
In complete disrepair. We have a government that has given unlimited funding to the defense of foreign borders, but refuses to defend American borders or, more importantly, its own people. Our country can no longer deliver basic services in times of emergency, as recently shown by the wonderful people of North Carolina, been treated so badly, and other states who are still suffering from a hurricane that took place many months ago. Or more recently, Los Angeles, where we're watching fires still tragically burn from weeks ago without even a token of defense. We have a public health system that does not deliver in times of disaster, yet more money is spent on it than any country anywhere in the world.
Yeah, of course, he will not mention the healthcare system, the predatory nature of it. It's all going to be from a perspective of government spending and government efficiency, not the overlying system that makes life unlivable for Americans.
And we have an education system that teaches our children to be ashamed of themselves. All of this will change starting today, and it will change very quickly.
So TRT World cut part of that line out. It says to make them our education system to make them ashamed of themselves and America. Okay, yeah, because teaching actual American history involves learning some uncomfortable things about the origin of the country and the things we've done in the past, the governments we've overthrown, and the genocides that the American state has taken part of and been at the forefront of. So, yes, he's promising all these things. There's no concrete policy decision, but what he's going to try to do in the next couple days is he will attempt to achieve all of these things by signing a flurry of executive orders, which is standard practice. So executive orders allow a president to wield power without action from Congress or any other legislative body like the Supreme Court. But there are also limits to what orders can achieve, right? So we're going to be talking about this a little bit tonight, discussing the U.S. presidency under Trump and the limits of his executive power. So real quick, before everybody starts freaking out, executive orders are more often than not about political messaging than concrete policy. So Trump has forecasted signing as many as 100 executive orders within the first couple days in office, or even on his first day, possibly covering deportations, the U.S.-Mexico border, domestic energies, Schedule F rules for federal workers. We're going to skip over that, but you can look into what Schedule F means if you live here. School gender policies. So this is going to be a big one. The gender policies, I think he is going to go for like the quickest win with that, because it's just, there's not as many roadblocks to that. Vaccine mandates. He also promised an executive order to give more time for the sale of TikTok, and that's what he's done. So we have more time with TikTok, even though, I don't know, we can probably talk about this. Sorry, getting over the flu. We can probably talk more about this at the end, but he put in TikTok, got it back. It's propaganda, right? He initially voted for the TikTok ban. Then he comes in, gives the company more time. And he is seen as like this guy who can get stuff done, that is a champion of free speech. And now he can leverage TikTok for concessions. I think there'll be a lot more security risks on TikTok now. I think there'll be a lot more government control, but we can do an episode on the tech aspect of how that might happen. But yeah, the whole TikTok coming back after going to like everyone migrating over to Red Note, it's propaganda. It's panem et circenses, bread and circuses. But yes, this is his first like major action that he's taken. He had asked Republican Jeff Vandrew, Republican from New Jersey, to write an order stopping the development of offshore windmills, for generating electricity. But it's entirely possible that Trump could also roll out many planned executive orders over time, and they won't necessarily be coming in the next couple of days, even though a lot will be. So many of Trump's measures, right, are likely to draw Democratic opposition, but the Democratic Party is kind of a mess, so who knows? And in several major cases, the orders will largely be statements of intent based off campaign promises. Doesn't mean it's going to go through. Doesn't mean mass deportations are going to happen. He may not even intend to do that. During his presidency, first of all, there was a bunch of infighting between his administration, and so many people, the turnover rate was insane, and it was largely ineffective. And he implemented a bunch of executive orders that never came to fruition. And all of his supporters basically just said, oh, it was the Democrats' fault. So we're going to hear that same refrain happening all year. So there are limits to the power of executive orders. Again, they're more about political messaging and statements of intent. But both Congress and the courts, so when we talk about like a new Muslim ban or sending in the military for like deportations, both Congress and the courts can potentially block executive orders. So if you remember, Congress in 1992 revoked an executive order by George H. Bush Sr. that would establish a human fetal tissue bank for scientific research by like passing a measure that the order, quote, shall not have any legal effect. So Congress can also deny funding to agencies and hamstring the enforcement of an order. So he doesn't have a free hand. He's not a complete dictator yet. And plus, like, we should keep the jokes of President Musk and Vice President Trump growing, because they're eventually going to have a falling out. So, and remember, as I mentioned a couple minutes ago, the infamous Muslim ban. which was Executive Order 13769, I believe, protecting the nation from foreign terrorist entry into the United States. It was labeled the Muslim ban, and it was known as such. The signing of the executive order provoked widespread condemnation and protests and resulted in legal intervention against the enforcement of the order. So, anyways, while 60,000 visas were revoked, it was never implemented in its entirety or in force. I think one of the biggest, we're going to see this again. We're going to see this again. What happened with the Muslim ban? We're going to see this again because one of the biggest criticisms of the Muslim ban, they were only like 12% of the global Muslim population from the countries in the ban, right? And so critics proposed, rightly so, that this was due to Trump having business ties with Muslim majority countries, which were excluded. What was it? I think Saudi was excluded, wasn't it? I'd have to double check, but that was the main criticism. Anyways, while 60,000 visas were revoked, it was never, again, implemented in force. But as the president, it is undeniable he is able to exert immense political force on certain issues. So tonight, we're going to start with the Israel-Hamas ceasefire, which is lasting into its second day. Some potential evidence of IDF violations is surfacing. There's a sniper incident in Gaza, and a couple other things that I don't want to show here. So in order to not get mint press banned, shadow banned even more than we already are. So it's lasting into its second day. Sorry. There's some potential evidence of IDF violations is surfacing, and Netanyahu is by no means above sabotaging the nascent ceasefire deal, although I'm kind of leery that he won't. So 3 Israeli hostages were released yesterday, or depending on where you live, as part of a long-awaited ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. They are the first of 33 that Hamas is expected to free during the first phase of the deal. Early Monday, more than 7 hours later, Israel released 90 Palestinian prisoners and detainees. But they did what they did the last time during the first rounds of hostage exchanges. They released 90, and they have detained 100 new and different hostages in West Bank while the Palestinian Authority looked on and smoked cigarettes. So we're going to have to talk about the Palestinian Authority too. So early Monday, they released the 90 Palestinian prisoners and detainees facilitated by the Red Cross. The Israeli hostages were transferred to the IDF and ISA just after 5:30 p.m. local time and crossed the border into Israeli territory shortly after that. Those agencies said in a joint announcement, we have the footage. So the hostage deal will begin to be implemented most likely over the next few weeks. It's the same thing that we were talking about last summer. It's got 3 phases. Both sides have an incentive to maintain the ceasefire for 6 weeks and to complete the release of 33 hostages in exchange for over 1,200 Palestinian hostages. The true test will come with the second phase, which involves the release of the second group of Israeli hostages, alive and dead, upon the completions of Israel's withdrawal from the Gaza Strip. Trump sounded sure of himself, and if the ceasefire deal is compromised, now that he puts his name on it, he will probably be totally enraged. So let's see. Let's hear him. Let's hear him out.
My proudest legacy will be that of a peacemaker and unifier. That's what I want to be, a peacemaker and a unifier. I'm pleased to say that as of yesterday, one day before I assumed office, the hostages in the Middle East are coming back home to their families.
It's true. He wants to be seen as a peacemaker. It's very clear that he wants a Nobel Peace Prize. He wants to be seen as a deal maker, and he wants his vested interests in Saudi Arabia, which his son-in-law is also caught up in, and a number of other interests as well, to really be served by his presidency. So I'm not sure about the numbers attending the inauguration, but yeah, someone says wait for the big cuts to Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. Yeah, well, that's the entire purpose of the Department of Governmental Efficiency. And actually, there's a tax cap on how much billionaires have to pay towards Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. So Elon Musk is having to pay virtually like nothing while cutting these programs. So, anyways, Trump sounded sure of himself, and if the ceasefire deal is compromised, as I said, he will probably be enraged because as much as I don't like him, as you can tell from my reporting on Trump, he's not going to be as willing to be seen as a chump with regards to Netanyahu as Biden was willing to seem. So for a long time, okay, so first, at the same time, the characteristics of the new arrangement will become clear, including questions such as whether Gaza Strip will be reconstructed, which countries will mobilize and finance this, and whether there is a chance for an overall solution that includes an alternative government that removes Hamas from ruling in the Gaza Strip. Seems totally unlikely to me. And here's Blinken from last week saying things that we already knew.
The Israeli government that Hamas cannot be defeated by a military campaign alone, that without a clear alternative, a post-conflict plan, and a credible political horizon for the Palestinians, Hamas, or something just as abhorrent and dangerous, will grow back. That's exactly what's happened in northern Gaza since October 7th. Each time Israel completes its military operations and pulls back, Hamas militants regroup and reemerge because there's nothing else to fill the void. Indeed, we assess that Hamas has recruited almost as many new militants as it has lost. That is a recipe for an enduring insurgency and perpetual war.
Yeah. So, of course, we've been saying that since this thing first kicked off. It's a political reality. It's a military reality. And for a long time, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu did not want this deal. His followers insist that his considerations were relevant. Controlling the so-called Philadelphia corridor on the Gaza Strip's border with Egypt was presented as an eternal security requirement for Israel, even though it's in violation of the Camp David Accords. Their reasoning being that the tunnels under the Philadelphia corridor are how Hamas gets its weapons, food, materiel, and intelligence support through those tunnels, which is why they need to control the ground above them. Then again, they've been completely ineffective at finding most of the tunnels. So, yeah. And the rapidity in which Netanyahu did retreat from this principle under pressure from Trump attests that the real weight of his argument was really not that great. And so the main consideration, I think, driving Netanyahu for quite some time is his own political survival. He was hit with the corruption charges before October 7th even began. He was in a strong political position after the pager attack. They really loved the pager attack after the fall of Assad in Syria, looking pretty strong. However, now that Trump's coming in and determining policy with his attack dog, Steve Witkoff, who went to Israel to argue Trump's position, he's having to make concessions and he's having to take the ceasefire. I'll give you my reasoning behind why Trump was the main driver of this. But yeah, Ben-Gvir, head of the spiritual head of the Israeli illegal settlement initiative and campaign of ethnic cleansing, resigned from government because of the ceasefire deal or the hostage deal. And he's urging Smotrich to go with him. Benjamin Netanyahu's far-right coalition seems to be in danger, and he didn't really have any other option besides taking the deal. So in a Haaretz article by Amos Harel published today, asserts that some of the prime minister's blind followers are going through a painful sobering up these days. Trump is not an admirer of Israel or Netanyahu. He acts out of a tangled web of interests focusing on positioning the U.S. within the rapidly changing global strategic picture, as well as looking after his own personal status and prestige. So, yeah, look, he's not a Zionist, but he got the deal. He's still going to support Israel no matter what. And we're going to talk about that now. So first of all, it's very clear he wants to paint himself as an anti-war candidate who makes deals, does all the deals, got all the best deals, the greatest deals. But he won't be able to as speedily exert the amount of pressure needed to end the war in Ukraine as he will with the Israel-Hamas situation, the Israel-Palestine situation. He said that the war in Ukraine would end before he even got into office. And then, of course, Foreign Minister Lavrov of the Russian government said, no, that's really not going to happen. He's not going to be as influential with Putin as, with this country that we support unconditionally with aid. So he did want the ceasefire to happen. He pressured Netanyahu to make it happen. I don't know what kind of threats were said backstage, but here's the deal. He's very quid pro quo. So now that the ceasefire has gone into effect in Gaza, the trade for that, the concession for that, was to give Israel, by using his position as president of the United States, political cover to annex more and more of the West Bank. Trump is not a pacifist, and he is only really cares about himself, but that's the deal. So again, one of the billionaires at the inauguration, sitting specifically behind Hillary Clinton to the right of Trump, was Miriam Adelson, the widow and heir of Sheldon Adelson, billionaire, Zionist mob boss, essentially. She is pro settlement to the extreme. And she donated. Well, first of all, she's a Mossad asset, and she donated $100 million to Trump's campaign. So that is the quid pro quo. They couldn't expand in Lebanon, so they grabbed parts of Syria, and they can't expand beyond that in their vision of a greater messianic Israel. So they'll take what's in their own borders. That's West Bank. Gaza reconstruction is still a consideration. Yeah, someone says Adelson can barely speak English. No one mentions this. Yeah, she's we know what she's after. So, yeah. Someone says, "Oh, we will get into the Russia-Ukraine conflict." He doesn't have the power to stop it. I think the Ukrainians have opened up another front in an attempt to beat the Russians back a little bit and get some diplomatic concessions for ending the war, because I don't think they feel very secure in Trump's support, but I'm getting distracted for a second. So first of all, yes, the terms of the deal are that. Also, Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, has doubled his stake in the Saudi fund that is supporting illegal settlements in the West Bank as well. And of course, Trump is pushing for and has always been a big proponent of Saudi-Israeli normalization. So this brings the question about, yes, the ceasefire is tenuous. It's in its second day. Trump will support Israel because that is what he does. That's where his business interests align. However, he will want to do it in an anti-war way. So basically back to somewhat of a status quo where illegal settlements continue to encroach on Palestinian sovereignty. Talk of a two-state solution is most likely done, at least for the time being, within official government circles. I think most people who watch this channel is like, yeah, a two-state solution is unworkable in the first place. So fine, but it's going to be one state or bust with equal rights and dignities for all. But anyways, one of the things that we have to talk about now that the West Bank is going to be, or the attempt is going to be made to annex more and more of the West Bank, we're going to have to talk about the Palestinian Authority. Okay. Because over the past month, they've been real comprador, being essentially the goon squads for the Israeli occupation. So they've been arresting people at the behest of Israel. They've been killing Palestinians. They've been torturing Palestinian teenage boys and youths. We've seen that. So basically lacking any influence in Gaza, the Palestinian Authority is kind of struggling to assert its relevance. It's only relevant as in West Bank as a very hated goon squad comprador of the occupation entity in the West Bank. So the Palestinian president Mahmoud Abbas in his inner circle has reacted coolly to the ceasefire agreement, rejecting international offers to rebuild Gaza contingent on appointing a prime minister. So, yeah, there's some calls for the Palestinian Authority to take over control of Gaza. That's completely unworkable. They know they're hated. They know that their fates are tied to the successful existence and security of the Israeli occupation state. If they go into if they go into Gaza, they will most likely clash with Hamas as collaborators. So, the ceasefire agreement has completely excluded the Palestinian Authority from a position of influence, and with no guarantee for the return of its institutions to the enclave. Proof of its marginalization, like the PA's official channels really haven't covered the ceasefire much at all. So, according to Haaretz, a senior official in the Palestine Liberation Organization, the PLO, which they designate a terrorist organization, told Haaretz that besides securing the release of prisoners held in Israel, Hamas has nothing to brag about, and certainly nothing that will allow Palestinians in Gaza to say that the cost and lives they've paid in the last 15 months was worthwhile. So, first of all, what's the PA going to do? Abbas's aides have rejected any attempt to install a prime minister and dictate the identity of a new Palestinian leadership. So even amid the trauma and the humanitarian crisis endured by the Palestinians, because of the PA and certain other actors, the leadership remains fragmented, which is exactly what Israel likes, with factions unable to forge a unified political path. But what I wanted to bring up was that, there's a lot of things still in limbo with the Palestine situation, but I do think we're going to bring up some Haaretz real quick, because really it goes to show you what Israelis think, like at least the liberal Zionists think about the ceasefire deal. So 1 second, where was this article? Let's see. Oh, we got Elon Musk throwing the Nazi support. But anyways, unaware of Trump's envoy. Okay. Yeah, see, like Trump, not Netanyahu, will decide whether to restart the war and who will govern Gaza. Hardest hit by Hamas, Israel's borders community greets ceasefire with fear, uncertainty. So, there's a lot of opinions that Netanyahu is lying to Trump and preparing to sabotage the ceasefire deal, which I think he may eventually. But it was basically seen by, at least the liberal media, that this was kind of a victory for Hamas and a loss for the IDF. Fireworks, flowers, Sinwar. Hamas wins big with West Bank with Palestinian prisoner release. So they're going to do everything to make sure that this victory doesn't really come to fruition. But the bottom line is they spent 15 months roughly in Gaza destroying it, leveling it, undoing generations of propaganda. And the propaganda, the myth of Israel, that it's the region's only democracy. It's, the only place that's free. It has the most powerful military on earth. It's our greatest ally and needs to exist. That's been shattered. That was the shield That and foreign money is what's kept Israel safe in a region that's not necessarily hostile to it, because it's surrounded by comprador governments, especially in Jordan, and Sisi's administration isn't really a threat. So that's gone. And now they have in the words of the head of the ADL, Israel has a massive problem. They have a generational problem. People see it for what it is. So they've isolated themselves, become a pariah state. Now they have this gaping wound that they've created, Gaza, and that will not go away. So here we go. When it comes to the basic premise of fourth generation asymmetrical warfare, we can talk about this in terms of Vietnam, right? So you have it's asymmetrical because the two sides are formed differently. On one side, you have a state military, the IDF, that has tanks, planes, an air force, hundreds of thousands of recruits to go off of massive intelligence capabilities, which really didn't work in finding all the Hamas people and all the tunnels and stuff. So, the basic premise is if you go in as an illegal, violent, occupying force, and the other side is asymmetrical because they have small arms, flip-flops, no motor vehicles, nothing, no air force, nothing, and you can't defeat them, you will be seen as taking the loss. So that's what we saw during the unfortunately named global war on terror. The United States was not able to achieve any of its strategic objectives in Iraq. We didn't achieve any strategic objectives post overthrowing the government, both Iraqi and the Taliban government in Afghanistan. And after that, we were just left with a mess that couldn't be solved, that couldn't be fought, that couldn't be won. As I said multiple times, the only way to defeat Hamas is to literally kill everyone in Gaza. And they weren't willing or able to do it. So now they have this gaping wound. Mass relocations will be met with with resistance. I think hopefully the people I've talked to in Gaza intend to stay and don't intend to be mandatorily evacuated. Although I'm sure plenty of people, if offered, will want to get out of Gaza. They had to withdraw. The Israeli army is completely demoralized. They're stretched thin. They were not fabricated and created to fight long wars of attrition. They're meant for short, violent, 2-month-long, massive aerial bombing campaign oriented wars that end quickly and end in a decisive victory. This wasn't a victory. They didn't achieve any of their goals. So, and someone says war. So war profits are the objective of some. Yeah, absolutely. Also, this was a great opportunity to test weapons and armaments and everything else in Gaza. So that was always part of the Israeli defense industrial complex. So yeah, someone says arguably making Gaza unlivable was a strategic aim, and they created that one. But yes, they failed on all the other principal aims. Well, I mean, that was definitely their aim. Their aim was genocide. Although all of their stated aims, and this is why the perception is that they lost, is because all of their stated aims were not accomplished. So, plus, guys, aerial bombing doesn't work. So, Trump talked about that. I think what we're going to see is a push for normalization with Saudi Arabia, other Gulf states, and Israel. That's going to be difficult for Arab leaders to do while there's a complete humanitarian catastrophe and effort to forcibly relocate and ethnically cleanse both Gaza Strip and the West Bank. So we'll see if it can happen. Yeah. Okay. So someone says, Netanyahu says that his next attack on Gaza will be like no other. What do you think this means? I think this means he just has to say shit because he is fighting for his political survival. His coalition of far right-wing lunatics is falling apart because he felt like he had to accept the ceasefire. So he's having to say things like, ceasefire is only temporary. But when it starts again, the next attack will be like no other. Someone asked, do you think Iran was part of the ceasefire deal? Doubtful. Although I think they will get involved again somehow to a lesser capacity if the ceasefire deal, getting over it, falls apart. So, yes. Now, moving on to, I don't want to focus too much on Trump's domestic policy because, a lot of y'all don't live here, but it is relevant insofar to foreign policy as these imperial projects like Israel and stuff, they usually collapse when faith in them and the imperial core collapses, or they are no longer profitable or sustainable. So I think as life becomes more and more unlivable in the United States, which is only going to get worse, and more violent and more depressing for people, and the oligarchy continues to like bald face assert their power over millions and millions of Americans, support and fervor for Israel will dry up. So in terms of domestic policy, I don't know, we'll keep sending money to Israel, cutting money from public funding or from public programs, and more people will get fed up. And that's Israel's worst nightmare, which is why they're spending $150 million extra on propaganda this year. So, yeah. Cool, guys. And then in terms of Russia, Ukraine, he's going to definitely pressure Ukraine to come to the table. But then again, Russia is in a very strong position. I mean, they're kind of having a similar manpower shortages, but in terms of equipment, they're pretty solid. And there's going to be a push to end it, but it probably won't. Now, he wants to do a geostrategic shift to China, not necessarily with military action, but Trump's more of a sanctions, bullying, maximum pressure kind of guy to force people into taking a deal that's bad for them. So we're going to see that with Iran. Again, we're going to see that with the tariffs in China. And any other enemy that he doesn't particularly like. So, yeah, trade wars, maximum pressure campaigns, and it will only, I believe, reinforce people's commitment to BRICS. Because, again, BRICS is born out of a desire or fear of U.S. and Western sanctions. So if he keeps using the stick all the time, he says he's a great negotiator. He's a deal maker. Yeah, sure. With people he already has business arrangements with, I guess. But yes, using the imperial stick and not with a lot of nuance is really not going to help, the West's cause and defeating BRICS or slowing it down. It's still going to take a while to be a viable contender. But the Trump presidency is not going to help that at all. Biden's preemptive pardons have also happened, which are pretty insane. Yeah. Someone says China will dunk on Trump so hard. Honestly, Trump's policies, both foreign and domestic, are just going to lead to the collapse of the U.S. empire. I'm not an accelerationist, but I'm not an accelerationist either. I want to be able to enjoy my 30s a little bit before I get like too old, but it's going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy. Y'all, so strap in. The ongoing red note revolution's hilarious. The single biggest PR disaster happened because Tom Cotton and other Republicans and Democrats, it was a bipartisan bill to ban TikTok, got together and thought like, that'll show these kids. And the blowback from that was absolutely hilarious. And look, Trump's presidency is going to be volatile. He's not going to go through with a lot of his threats, his crazy threats. He's already started to walk back some of the deportation things he said. And when it doesn't come to fruition, he'll just blame Democrats. And what's interesting is he's trying to bring back the Monroe Doctrine, which was, that Europe is after President James Monroe, when they thought the Spanish were going to try to colonize the Americas, and the British were going to come back, and the French were going to do some stuff, and Russia was going to invade and try and take Alaska. The Monroe Doctrine came up and said the United States owns the American continent. No European power will interfere. And now looks like his foreign policy is going to be Monroe Doctrine 2.0, so somewhat less interventionalist, except within the confines of the American continent. So basically, from Monroe Doctrine 2.0, it's going to be not allowing China or Russia or anybody else, or even Latin American countries, to determine what the United States is and is not able to do in the Americas. So Greenland, Canada, the Panama Canal, all on the list for U.S. imperialism. And the Monroe Doctrine 2.0 is basically shifted primarily at China. So yes, someone just said it. Yeah, Monroe Doctrine 2.0 is squarely aimed at growing Chinese influences in America, and the most easily recognizable is the Panama Canal. And I did an episode on my own podcast, Colonial Outcasts, about the Panama Canal and Greenland. We don't have enough time to talk about that right now. So it's going to be a crazy 4 years. Just like last time, there's going to be an insane cabinet turnover. There's going to be a lot of political infighting. There's going to be people feuding, suing each other, and it's going to be a mess. And after watching his first presidency, I don't want to make any predictions. But all right, dudes, let's get to the questions. Numbers attending the inauguration, RCU. Okay, so there's supposed to be a lot of MAGA people traveled to DC specifically to see the Trump inauguration. But because of security threats and because it's cold in DC, I just got back from DC. They moved it to the Capitol Rotunda. So it wasn't too many people. I mean, there's still a significant amount of people, but it was only a select crowd. And there are a lot of people disappointed in Trump for not having it outside so they could see it. It's like, get used to being disappointed, big guys. Yeah, people guys were on camera saying I'm a farmer. I can't not go farming when it's cold out. So it's like, yeah, okay. Just slowly start learning class consciousness over the next 4 years. I'm here for it. I actually do believe Trump is a pacifist. I don't think he has the stomach for war. He did greenlight the assassination of Qasem Soleimani during his presidency, which was incredibly inflammatory. In his defense, he might not have known what he was doing or who the IRGC was, because he didn't even read his intel briefs last presidency. So that's possible. But he did authorize the dropping of more ordnance on Afghanistan than Obama did. So we'll see. Only time will tell. But he's definitely styling himself that way for voter points. Okay, Greg, with Trump coming into office, what does that mean for Russia-Ukraine conflict? I think it means a similar thing. I don't think he'll be able to stop that. There's a lot of wheels moving, so I think it'll turn into a frozen conflict. He'll try to pressure Ukraine, but Russia necessarily won't back down, and he won't want to seem like a simp for Putin. But then again, he might, because he was really trying to be buddies with Putin his first presidency, but he's changed. We don't know exactly in which ways he has, but there would definitely be a push to at least stop sending so much money to Ukraine, and also to get other countries in NATO to pay more or get out of NATO itself, which would spell the death of NATO. Again, who knows what's going to happen. I wonder what date they put the history books of when the World War III officially started. I think it probably started with the war in Ukraine. And then with the fall of Syria and the Assad regime, I think it's the end of phase 1. And now we're going into phase 2, which will be heavily economic. Some proxy wars will, happen, but I don't think World War III will look like World War I or World War II. I'm hoping the days of mass war, high intensity conflict are over because it's just going to end in nukes this time. So hopefully it stays. World War III stays the way it's been. So Warrior Leonard Peltier Leonard Peltier of Turtle Island is free. So native indigenous activists around here, one of the biggest political prisoners in U.S. history. Biden just granted him clemency, not because he cares, but because he doesn't want to be remembered for a genocide of another group of indigenous people. So, yeah, smoke and mirrors, but it's awesome. It's about damn time. And nobody wanted Leonard to die in prison. So, what is liberal Zionist? A liberal Zionist is, someone who believes that Israel has a right to exist and defend itself, and practice apartheid on Palestinians and fight Arabs. But so like democracy, freedom of speech, um, responsible law, enforcement of the rule of law, having conversations, things like that, just liberal stuff. But they still believe hardcore in capitalist imperialism as well. So, yeah. I totally agree that he's terrible for Palestinians on the whole, aside from actually getting the ceasefire, but he isn't ideologically tied to doing anything for Israel. I think he's still beholden to the Adelsons and other people for campaign contributions. But yeah, he wasn't great for Palestine the first time around, and he won't be this time around. So, Monroe 2.0, less land, more power. I don't think it's going to work. Like, well, the U.S. is in a terminal phase. So, yeah, I mean, there's still an insane amount of inertia behind the United States empire, but I don't think they'll really be able to stop Chinese influence on the continent or even control the continent like they used to. There's a push to stop blockading Cuba. People are realizing what we're doing in Haiti. Venezuela hasn't, had an effective coup, and we've wanted a coup there forever. So okay, it's we've got waning influence, and now we're going after Greenland. Like, that's really, of course, we want control of their economic sectors. And the tech oligarchs want all that lithium and rare earth minerals in Greenland, so we might see some movement on that. But yeah, it's all going to be a mess. Yeah, so if I was Adelson, I'd be avoiding stairs because she better not make a nuisance of herself. Yeah, so okay. Someone says, sure as shit, I don't want the Chinese in my region. Never. I mean, it'd be cool if they didn't compromise your politics and extract your resources. So hopefully that doesn't happen. So New York Times wants a coup. I haven't read any New York Times articles today. Bay of Piglets BBC article. Piglets. BBC. Oh, the Cuba invasion. Okay. Yeah. Anyways, okay, yes. And finally, Greg, can you please give a shout out to the Hind Rajab Foundation, who are actively pursuing, I think you meant, IOF war criminals around the globe. If you spot one, let them know. Yes, shout out to the Hind Rajab Foundation. They are engaged on an international effort to make Zionist war criminals not feel safe when they're partying in places around the world. And yes, Peltier is going to spend his final days as an old, sick, dying man, finally free. Yes. Why do I not believe it that the empire is declining? What to look for? I don't know. Has your life been improving? What we have, if we continue to decline into fascism, is going to lead eventually, hopefully, to a class revolution, and that will end the empire. Again, I'd go more into it, but we are out of time, y'all. Anyways, we're back. We're just going to be doing Mondays from now for right now, because just a weekend roll up because all the crazy stuff happens, and then I've got a lot of stuff going on and I'm super busy. But yes, Mondays, totally 100%. We will be back. Thank y'all so much. There's gonna be a lot to happen this week that we can talk about when we get better. Thank y'all so much, and we will see you on the next one. And yeah, don't get the flu, y'all.